Life is a game. Here's Alan Watts' secret cheat code. If life were just a brutal survival contest, then anxiety would be wisdom. Caution would be king. We'd armor up, stack up resources, outwork our rivals, and measure every heartbeat by its usefulness. But what if this whole way of looking at life is wrong, not just a little wrong, but radically, comically, devastatingly wrong? Alan Watts thought so. He didn't believe life was a war to win or a ladder to climb. He believed life was a game, one that most of us tragically forget we're playing. And here's the kicker. He didn't just believe this was a fun metaphor. He believed it was the fundamental truth behind the illusion we mistake for seriousness. Because if you could remember that life is a game, not a punishment or test, then everything changes. Not just your outlook, but the very rules of reality. Watts pointed out that we're trained from birth to treat life as something you must earn your way through. Work hard, prove yourself, be useful, be respectable, be afraid. And if you follow these rules, maybe, just maybe, you'll be allowed a tiny slice of happiness at the end. But this is like logging into a video game and spending the entire time in the settings menu, adjusting the controls, obsessing over the graphics, and never actually playing. You were given a chance to explore, to dance, to create, to interact. Instead, most people obsess over safety, status, and security, trying to win a game that was never supposed to be about winning at all.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound insights.
So what's the cheat code? According to Watts, it's this. The moment you remember that life is a performance, not a preparation, you become free. You stop being a pawn trying to earn validation and become the player who realizes the stage is yours. And here's where it gets weird. When you actually lean into life, as if it's a game, when you treat it like a piece of art, not a to-do list, you don't become lazy. You become alive. You don't avoid effort, you pour your whole soul into it. Not because you're scared of losing, but because playing is the reward. That shift right there is the cheat code. Most people think play is the opposite of seriousness, but Watts challenged that. He said real play is actually the most intense form of living. Why? Because when you play, you engage fully. You lose yourself in the moment, you stop calculating, you stop comparing, you become. And that's what we're here for, not to control every outcome, but to experience the full range of being human as deeply and fearlessly as possible. When you act from that mindset, life starts to reflect it back. The world responds differently when you stop treating it like a trap. I think about it. In any game, the worst players are the ones who try to win too hard. They lose the rhythm. They force things. They panic. But the masters, they're fluid, creative. They improvise. They find joy in risk and movement. Watts believed that's how we're meant to live. But we've been conditioned to believe that control is the highest virtue. That planning beats presence. That fear equals preparation. And so we build these tiny, sterile cages for ourselves, walled in by achievements and expectations, forgetting that we were meant to play the damn game. Let me ask you something uncomfortable. When was the last time you truly played with your own life? Not followed a script, not checked a box, but stepped into the moment, uncertain of the outcome, and said, let's see what happens. Most people never do, because they're too busy trying to be someone. But Watts tells us the real power comes when you stop trying to be anything at all and just start dancing with existence. That's not carelessness. That's spiritual courage. And here's the most controversial part. This mindset works. The people who seem the most magnetic, the most intuitive, the most successful, not just materially, but spiritually, are often the ones who treat life with this exact kind of playful seriousness. They're not reckless. They're aligned. They trust the flow. They take risks not to gain approval, but because they're in the game to feel alive. The irony? That attitude is precisely what makes life unfold in extraordinary ways. So the question now is this: what if you started treating your life like a game you already knew how to play? What if instead of proving your worth, you assumed it and just played? Would you still fear failure? Would you still obsess over being taken seriously? Or would you finally give yourself permission to live like everything was a canvas and every moment was a move? Why taking life seriously is the fastest way to lose the game. It sounds noble, doesn't it? Taking life seriously. Being responsible. Being realistic. Getting your act together. We hear it our whole lives: take things seriously, or you'll fall behind. And most people do. They tighten their expressions, their calendars, their expectations. They trade wonder for worry, curiosity for caution, and play for productivity. But Alan Watts cuts through that illusion like a blade. Because when you take life too seriously, you don't become more grounded, you become less alive. You freeze. You grip. You stop listening to the music and start marching to a rhythm that was never yours. You become, in essence, unplayable. And in the game of life, that's how you lose, not through failure, but through the slow suffocation of joy. Let's get one thing straight: seriousness isn't the same as sincerity. Being sincere means you care. It means you show up honestly with your whole being. But seriousness, that's what happens when you mistake the game for a courtroom. When you assume every move is being judged, every mistake is a moral crime, every outcome a final verdict. Watts warned against this trap again and again, not because he wanted people to be foolish, but because he saw how seriousness dulls the senses. It makes people rigid, nervous, blind to the spontaneity that gives life its pulse. You see, when you're too serious, you become too scared to improvise. And improvisation is everything. I think about children. They're not afraid to look silly, to change direction mid-sentence, to laugh in the middle of chaos. They adapt, respond, explore because they haven't yet been shamed out of play. But adults, we armor up. We convince ourselves that joy is for the naive, that success demands a furrowed brow, that laughter is unprofessional. And in doing so, we lose the very fluidity that makes great things happen. Watts believed that taking yourself seriously was a form of spiritual ego, because underneath the seriousness is fear, the fear of being exposed, being wrong, being vulnerable. And so we build these serious personas to protect ourselves from the messiness of life. But that messiness is the exact place where magic lives. What if I told you that your most serious plans, your best laid ambitions, might be limiting your life more than liberating it? What if your intense need for control is blinding you to opportunities that only spontaneity can reveal? Watts understood that when we cling to seriousness, we close the door to the unexpected. And the unexpected is where transformation hides. When we're overly serious, we approach life like it's a test one with only one right answer. But life isn't multiple choice, it's jazz, it's stand-up, it's improv. You don't pass it, you play it. And when you stop playing, when you freeze, the whole game turns against you. Your mind gets louder. Your fear grows deeper. You become obsessed with outcomes because you've forgotten how to be present. Seriousness is always future-focused. It's about what could go wrong, what hasn't happened yet, what might happen if you slip. But presence laughs. Presence listens. Presence lets go of the need to win and simply enjoys the moment for what it is, a wild, fleeting miracle that will never happen the same way twice. So, let's break the spell. You don't need to get it all together before you can play. You don't need to figure it all out before you can dance with the chaos. Life was never asking you to solve it. It was asking you to experience it. Fully. Playfully. Now. And the truth is, the more you play, the more the world responds. Opportunities unfold. Ideas flow. People feel your authenticity because you're no longer performing, you're participating. You're no longer treating life like a problem. You're engaging with it like an artist. Let me ask you something deeply unsettling. Who are you when you're not being serious? Who is the version of you that laughs without checking if it's appropriate? That creates without needing a goal? That speaks without rehearsing? That person, unguarded, curious, playful, is likely the most magnetic, alive and real version of you. And you've spent years suppressing them in the name of getting it right. But Alan Watts' secret is this: there is no right. There's only now. And in the now, the only thing that matters is whether you're playing the game or pretending it's a courtroom. So the next time you feel that heavy seriousness creeping in, pause, breathe, and ask, what would happen if I dropped the act and played like it was all a dream? Because the moment you do, you'll realize it kind of is. How to actually play. Alan Watts' real rules for beating the illusion. So how do we actually play? How do we take Alan Watts' dazzling philosophy from idea to embodiment? It's not about reciting quotes or trying to look enlightened. It's not about detachment as a mask for avoidance. Watts didn't want us to escape life. He wanted us to enter it fully, courageously, joyfully. Playing in this context doesn't mean acting silly or throwing away responsibility. It means waking up from the trance. It means moving through the illusion with awareness, like a lucid dreamer who knows he's dreaming but still chooses to explore. And the first rule to beating the illusion is deceptively simple. Stop pretending the game is real. This doesn't mean denying the world, your pain, your bills, or your body. It means seeing through them, not in a way that invalidates experience, but in a way that liberates it. You can pay your rent, raise your kids, show up for work, and still know at the deepest level that this is a passing play, a temporary performance in the theater of consciousness. You are not just the actor. You are the awareness behind the actor. You are the infinite choosing to dance in the finite. And when you know that, not just intellectually but viscerally, something wild happens. You begin to play with the whole script. You smile at the tragedy. You find rhythm in the chaos. You engage without clinging. You love without fearing the end, because you've stopped demanding permanence from a world made of waves. The second rule: never mistake the mask for the face. Society hands us identities like costumes: student, employee, influencer, victim, hero, parent, rebel. Each comes with expectations, scripts, and props. But Watts reminds us the danger is not wearing the mask, it's forgetting you're wearing it. When we become our role, we get stuck. We defend the character. We limit our range. But when you know it's a mask, you gain freedom. You can switch roles, change tone, break character, improvise. You start to realize that the self you're protecting isn't a thing, it's a process. A dance of traits, reactions, preferences, and patterns. None of it needs to be fixed or defended. It's just a costume in motion. Now comes the third rule: stop playing to win, start playing to feel. This is where almost everyone crashes, because we're conditioned to measure life by outcomes, status, metrics, approval, accumulation. But when you chase these too hard, you miss the entire texture of the game. You speed through levels without enjoying the scenery. Watts taught that experience is the whole point. Sensation, emotion, surprise, beauty. The play is the point. You don't need to justify it with a prize. And paradoxically, the less you chase outcomes, the more deeply you touch life. Success flows more freely when you stop demanding it to look a certain way. Love becomes richer when you stop trying to own it. Creativity explodes when you stop forcing it to be useful. Then there's the fourth rule, and it might be the hardest. Learn to laugh at the game even when it hurts. This isn't detachment. It's transcendence. It's the ability to feel your suffering without becoming its prisoner, to recognize that pain is part of the dance, and that resisting it often amplifies it. When you can laugh in the middle of the storm, not from denial, but from cosmic perspective, you become powerful in a way no philosophy can fake. Because now, even sorrow has space. Even loss becomes a beat in the music. Watts didn't tell us to escape suffering. He taught us to include it in the rhythm of being, to bow to it without bitterness, to find the humor in the madness of it all. And finally, the fifth rule, remember that you're not alone in the game. This is one most people miss. They turn Watts into a solo mantra, forgetting that awakening is relational, that joy is magnetic, that play spreads. When you begin to live this way, not as a theory, but as a lived experiment, others feel it. You become a reminder, a spark, a permission slip for someone else to drop the mask, loosen the grip, and join the dance. This isn't a lonely liberation. It's a shared remembering. That's the real cheat code, not escaping life, but playing it so freely, so openly, that you awaken others just by being you. So here's the truth. Life won't stop being mysterious. The illusion won't disappear. But the more you play with awareness, the more it bends. The more it mirrors your energy. And the more you stop needing to escape the illusion, because now you're dancing inside it. You win the game by leaving it behind. The final move Alan Watts knew most people fear. At some point in the game, a strange and terrifying realization dawns on you. To truly win, you must be willing to walk away from the game entirely. Not in despair, not in nihilism, but in a kind of radiant surrender that Alan Watts spoke of often, yet few truly understood. You must be ready to drop the scoreboard, the ego, the endless striving, not because you've lost, but because you finally understand that the game was never real in the way you thought it was. The moment you stop clinging to the identity that plays, you touch something deeper, the awareness that observes the play. That awareness, that's who you really are. And it doesn't need to win. It's already free. This is the final move, the one most people fear, because it demands the ultimate sacrifice, the death of who you thought you were. All your stories, your goals, your carefully built mask, none of it can cross this threshold. And yet, it's only in this letting go that you find the truth Watts always pointed toward. You are not in this universe like a character in a scene. You are the universe, pretending to be a character for a while. You are the dreamer, dreaming of being small. And the only way out is waking up. But waking up isn't flashy. It's not a lightning bolt. It's subtle, a shift in perception, a pause, a breath where you stop trying to make life go your way and instead see it. The traffic, the heartbreak, the random laughter, the failures, the smells, the silence. Everything suddenly becomes vivid. Ordinary moments become holy because you're no longer trying to use life as a means to an end. You're just being. That's what Watts meant when he said, muddy water is best cleared by leaving it alone. The game only dissolves when you stop thrashing inside it. But here's what's even more beautiful. When you step outside the illusion, you don't disappear. You return to the game, but this time you're not fooled by it. You play with joy. You act without attachment. You show up fully, but your peace is no longer held hostage by outcomes. This is the paradox Watts knew intimately. You become free not by avoiding life, but by engaging it with nothing to prove. And in that freedom, every action becomes art, every failure becomes play, every interaction becomes sacred, because you are no longer acting out of fear. You're expressing the infinite through a temporary form, and knowing that is the win that was never on the scoreboard. So what do you do now? You live, not as someone trying to become, but as someone being. You dance when no one's watching. You create without needing applause. You listen as if the universe is whispering through every ordinary moment, because it is. And when fear returns, which it will, you smile, because you know it's just another part of the illusion calling you to play again. Alan Watts gave us the cheat code, but it's up to us to use it. And the moment we do, we stop chasing victory and start embodying presence. We stop asking, how do I win? And start asking, how deeply can I experience this? And that is the final move. You were never here to win the game. You were here to remember you were never trapped in it.